You may not always want to give others free rein over your data now. There may be situations when you want to prevent others from editing or viewing your work. Excel has several built-in features that allow you to protect your worksheets as well as the data inside them. Let's start by talking about the simplest way you can prevent people from seeing your data, and that's hiding columns and rows. In this example, I've got a report here and a chart. Let's say that I don't want anybody to see this chart. I can simply highlight the rows that encapsulate the data that I want to hide, right-click, and select Hide. At this point, you can't see rows 9 through 26. They're hidden. And I can do the same thing with columns. To unhide, simply select the columns outside of the hidden range, right-click, select Unhide. Same thing with rows. You can also hide worksheets that you don't want people to see. So I'm going to add in a worksheet here. I'll click on the Insert Worksheet icon. This is my report. Let's say that this particular sheet is very important to me and I don't want anybody to see it. I can right-click, hide. To unhide that particular sheet, right-click on any of the tabs here in the workbook, select Unhide, and a dialog box will come up asking you which sheet do you want to unhide. If you have multiple sheets, they'll be listed here. In this case, I only have one, so Sheet 1. Another way to hide and unhide sheets is to go to the Home tab, click on Format, Hide and Unhide, Hide Sheet. And that particular command hides the current sheet that you're on. To unhide via the Home tab, click on Format, Hide and Unhide, Unhide Sheet, and again, that dialog box will pop up, allowing you to select the sheet that you want to unhide. Now, it's important to note that you can't hide all of the sheets in your workbook. You have to have at least one sheet showing in your workbook. Now, sometimes you don't necessarily want to prevent others from seeing the data. Rather, you want to prevent them from changing the data. This is where protecting the worksheet comes in. When I say protecting the worksheet, basically it means there are certain cells on your worksheet that are protected. The person who's using your worksheet can't change or update any of the cells that you've protected. Let me go ahead and put some data in here. And I'll expand out this column. And I've got two values here. One value that I want the user to change, and one value that I don't want the user to change. Now the first thing we'll have to do is change the locked property of the cells that you'd like the user to be able to change. So what does that mean? Well, let's click on the cell where we want the user to change the data. I'll go to the Home tab and click on any one of the dialog launchers that launches the Format dialog. For example, Alignment, Number, Font, any one of these will do. Click on that and the Format Cells dialog box will pop up. I'll go to Protection and I'm going to format the locked property of this particular cell. Right now it says locked, and what this basically means is that when this worksheet is protected, this particular cell will be locked, meaning it cannot be edited or changed in any way. I'm going to uncheck that. I'd like this cell to be not locked when this worksheet is protected. I'll press OK. In the case of this particular cell where I do not want changes to be made, if I go to the Format Cells dialog box, click on Protection, right here it says not locked, I like it to be locked. So now that I've ensured that all of the locked properties of the cells that I have in my sheet are set to their appropriate setting, I can go to the Review tab, click on Protect Sheet. The Protect Sheet is going to give me several options. First, it's going to give me the option of implementing a password. Now, you don't have to implement a password. You can leave this blank, and the password will simply be blank or empty. And then you have several options to lock and unlock certain things. For example, I can allow my users to select locked cells. I can allow my users to select unlocked cells. I allow my users to format cells. I can prohibit that. Allow my users to format columns. I can prohibit that. And certain things, and the options go on down the list. I'm not going to put a password here, and I'll show you what happens when you don't put a password. I'll press OK. And you'll notice that the icon up here changes to Unprotect Sheet. If I try to change anything on the worksheet here, I get a message saying the cell or chart you're trying to change is protected and therefore read-only. However, the cell that I tagged as not locked, I can change just fine. To unprotect the sheet, click on Unprotect Sheet, and the sheet is unprotected. Now, if we had applied a password to the protection, for example, I'll protect the sheet again and I'll type in the password, ABC, press OK. It'll ask me to re-enter the password, ABC. Now the sheet is protected again. To unprotect the sheet, I'll need the password. Now if I enter the wrong password, I'll get an error message saying that it's the wrong password. And notice that Excel asks you to verify that the caps lock key is off. These passwords are case sensitive, so if you type in uppercase ABC, the password won't be accepted either because the original password was set at lowercase ABC. So I'll have to try that again and enter ABC. And the sheet is unprotected. Although it's hard to imagine why you would want to protect a sheet like this, imagine if you had an annual report like this, where it would be easy to change these numbers here, thus changing the charts. I'll hit undo here to undo that change. Well, with something like this, you can definitely protect the sheet, set a password, ABC, reconfirm the password. Now we know that no one's going to be able to change any of the data in here. And again, to unprotect, just placing the password. And finally, let's talk about protecting a workbook. When you protect a workbook, you can protect two things: the structure of the workbook and the windows. When you protect the structure of the workbook, you prevent the adding and deleting of worksheets inside the workbook. When you protect the window of the workbook, you prevent the resizing and positioning of the window. By default, when you choose to protect a workbook, only structure is selected. And as you can see here, you can implement a password, just like in protecting a worksheet. To unprotect the workbook, simply click Unprotect Workbook and then put in your password.